Chapter 9. The Khanna mansion, once a fortress of composure and command, now throbbed with tension. Arjun stood in his father's study, the heavy silence pressing in on him like a vice. His father sat behind the carved oak desk, his expression unreadable, cold, disappointed, and unshaken despite the storm they were weathering. "You had one job," Vikram Khanna said at last, his voice cutting through the air like sharpened glass. "Contain the damage. And instead, you aligned yourself with a journalist and nearly handed our legacy over to the media." Arjun clenched his fists at his sides, trying to keep his voice steady. "I was trying to do what was right. There were illegal transactions under our roof. We can't pretend it didn't happen." Vikram's eyes burned. "You don't get to decide what's right, Arjun. You inherit. You protect. You obey. That's the cost of legacy." "No," Arjun snapped, anger flaring. "The cost of legacy shouldn't be silence. Or sacrificing people like Avni, who were only trying to expose the truth." His father's expression tightened, a brief flash of something unspoken flickering across his face, before it vanished behind cold steel. "If that woman means more to you than your own family, then perhaps you no longer belong here." The words hit harder than Arjun anticipated. There it was, his loyalty tested and found lacking. But beneath the disappointment and guilt, there was clarity. He could no longer be part of something that demanded blind allegiance over morality. Not anymore. Without another word, Arjun turned and walked out of the study. The air outside tasted different, cooler, sharper. As though it, too, was aware of the seismic shift that had just occurred. 2 days had passed since Avni last saw Arjun, and each one felt like a year. Her career, once adorned with accolades and fierce independence, had become a battleground of skepticism and shame. Colleagues whispered. News outlets cast doubt on her intentions. Her inbox was flooded with vitriol and pity, but none of it compared to the hollow ache that came from Arjun's silence. Despite the betrayal, some part of her had expected him to reach out, to explain, to apologize, to fight for the fragile connection that had begun to form between them. But instead, there was only silence. And that silence spoke volumes. Avni stood in her living room, surrounded by corkboards, news clippings, and fresh leads. Her fingers brushed over a photo pinned at the center, an image of the corrupt politician Kamal Varma shaking hands with a lesser-known businessman she'd recently linked to the shell companies. Her world might have turned upside down, but her mission hadn't changed. If anything, the betrayal had sharpened her focus. She would still bring the truth to light, even if she had to do it alone. A knock broke her concentration. Her brows furrowed. She wasn't expecting anyone. She cautiously opened the door, only to find Rima, a junior reporter, and one of the few people who hadn't turned on her, standing there with a concerned look. "You need to see this," Rima said, thrusting her phone forward. Avni took it, her heart clenching as she saw the live feed from a popular news channel. Arjun Khanna, standing at a podium, speaking to a packed room of reporters. "I am here today to take responsibility," he said, voice calm but heavy. "Over the past few months, a series of questionable transactions and unethical alliances were uncovered within Khanna Constructions. While I was unaware of the full extent, I should have acted sooner. I should have stood beside the people trying to expose the truth, instead of protecting those who abused their power." Avni stared at the screen, unable to breathe. Arjun continued, his expression tight but resolute. "I'm stepping down as executive director effective immediately. We will be cooperating fully with the authorities, and I will personally fund an independent audit of our operations." He paused, then added, "And to Avni Mehra, your work, your integrity, and your courage were never in question. Only my own." Avni slowly lowered the phone, speechless. "Are you okay?" Rima asked, voice soft. Avni could barely nod. Arjun had chosen the truth after all. That night, Arjun sat alone in his penthouse apartment, surrounded by silence. The press conference had been necessary, painful but necessary. He'd spent the past week confronting board members, demanding transparency, and unraveling layers of deceit woven deep into the company his family had built. But what haunted him most wasn't the fall of the empire. It was Avni. He thought of her constantly. Her laugh, her fire, her eyes when she was passionate about a lead. He remembered the way she'd looked at him the night they danced, unguarded, real. And then he remembered the betrayal. He had failed her. And even though he had tried to make things right publicly, he wasn't sure he could ever fix what he'd broken between them privately. His phone sat untouched on the table. He wanted to call her, to say something, anything. But he didn't even know where to begin. Avni sat at her desk, staring at the blinking cursor on her screen. She had a new article to write. This one different than anything she'd ever penned. It was not just an exposé. It was a reflection. When the truth costs everything. The fall and rise of Arjun Khanna. She wrote about the scandal, the cover-up, the complicity. But she also wrote about the man who chose redemption. She didn't paint him as a hero. Nor did she spare him the criticism he deserved. But she wrote honestly. And when she hit publish, it felt like closure. 3 days later, she found a letter on her doorstep. It was hand-delivered. No name on the envelope. Only a familiar, meticulous handwriting. Avni, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect understanding. But I need you to know the truth matters to me. Not because it costs me my title or my name, but because it almost costs me you. I wish I had been braver when it counted. But I'm trying now. And I'll keep trying, whether or not you ever open the door again. Arjun. Avni stood still for a long time, reading and rereading the words, her heart pounding louder with each line. The pain of betrayal hadn't faded, but in its place was something else now. Possibility. And maybe, just maybe, a path back to something that once sparked between them. Not today, maybe not even tomorrow, but one day. Chapter 9.